Our Vanishing Heritage. Stonehill Gully is a historical landmark that can be found in the village of Seaview Farm. According to the book Heritage Treasures of Antigua and Barbuda, written by Desmond Nicholson, Stonehill Gully was the place where King Court planned a slave rebellion in 1736. The slaves would meet there in secret to discuss the plans for the rebellion. However, the rebellion did not take place because a traitor informed the white slave masters about the rebellion that was being planned. Today, King Court is celebrated as one of our national heroes. Our class had the privilege of going on a field trip to Stonehill Gully. While there, we observed that the hill was made up of a lot of flint stones. Some areas of the gully are covered with thick green grass. As we walked along the hill overlooking the gully, we saw a lot of trees. Some of these trees were the cashew tree, the locust tree, better known as the sinking toe, and the wattle tree. Down in the gully was filled with a lot of vegetation. 3 different waterways connect down to the gully, and the water collects in a pond located at the northeast section of the gully. Looking down into the gully, you may think that it's not deep, but climbing down the gully, it can be very dangerous, so you have to be careful. According to the book Miss Douglas Leary, during the time of the sugar industry in Antigua, had the highest density of railway tracks in the world. There were up to 50.8 miles of track in the 108 square miles. The network of locomotive lines were used to transport the cane that was cut on the different plantations to the Guntrap Sugar Factory, where they were made into sugar. As Antigua became more developed, the majority of the railways were removed, but a few parts still remained. Some were sold as scrap metal. Our class went in search of the locomotive line. We located it on the premises of Mr. Keith Roy Brown. The part of the railway system that we saw was incomplete. The structure acts as a bridge, allowing the locomotive to travel on the tracks, going over the waterway which was below. The inner tracks for the bridge-like structure was missing. With only the main metal posts left between the 2 concrete slabs, Mr. Brown explained that several trains were still traveled around the railways after the many sugar mills went out of operation. He added that locomotives were given names, and 2 of them were known as Lena and George, George being the biggest. Visiting this landmark gave us a view of how the locomotive tracks might have looked back then. It was a truly touching experience. According to Desmond Nicholson in the book Heritage Landmarks of Antigua and Barbuda, slave dungeons were used to punish slaves that did not produce enough work on the estates during the time of slavery. 2 dungeons were located at Parsons Malls, which is an area situated between Seaton's and Glanville's. One was called the Bump Off and the other was called the Torturer. The Torturer is the only one that still stands today. Our class visited the Torturer dungeon. It is located on private property and can be found at the front of the property, close to the road. We noticed that the dungeon had a cylindrical shape at the bottom and a dome-shaped roof. The door was a square in shape and very small. It was made of bricks. As we walked to the back, we saw a small hole in the wall of the dungeon. We were told by the tour guide that this hole was used to allow the slaves to get air. We actually went down into the dungeon. As you enter the door, there is a steep drop that goes down into the area where the slaves would stand. Inside the dungeon was dark and hurt, and it felt really scary.